How's everybody doing? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem, and this is the Mechwarrior 5 clan story playthrough of the campaign. Each part being a mission, except for part 1, which was the entirety of the Huntress arc and a bunch of cool cutscenes. Here we are, part 6, with no stone unturned. We are continuing to track down Valasek, so we will do just that. Santander is Smoke Jaguars. They just haven't come to terms with that yet. So, strap into your battle mech and prepare for drop. Alright, it's time to leave no stone unturned when it comes to taking down these pirate scum, right? So that's what we're doing. It's got the higher drop weight. We can leverage some tonnage in that regard, and we can start really kicking in some faces, mech-wise, a bit more efficiently because we're bringing a lot of firepower to the board. So the goal here is to tackle these pirate homesteads, if you will, these locations, and try to get data to figure out where Valasek truly is, because the ultimate goal is to flush him out and scatter his forces. We want this world. We will have this world. It's already ours. They're just in the way. So that's the goal. Now, as far as Valasek's plan here, I think what Valasek is doing as a pirate and everything, trying to keep his land and holdings and everything else, would be more or less effective if he was facing what he thought, which is Draconis Combine forces, because this isn't in Innisphere proper. This is in the periphery. So I'm sure he's dealt with things, probing attacks on him throughout his course of time on Santander, and I'm sure what he's doing more or less would work out. I don't think he's blowing up dropships every time stuff lands, but I do think the rest of this is more or less par for the course of, hey, decentralize yourself, make it hard to pin us down. They'll eventually either lose interest or get deterred by any casualties they take over this course of time, and kind of guerrilla style will be okay. But two things: we're not Draconis Combine, we're the clans, and we have, I'm sure, much more asset bearing down on this world than originally thought by Valasek. So when he saw that, I'm sure that's when he initiated his plan of detonating the 3 dropships and more or less scattering, hoping that it would buy time to either get off world or to have us just move on. But we're going to wipe everything out. This is ours. And I think, especially at this juncture of the missions on Santander, I think Valasek knows it. That's my little headcanon for what's going on specifically behind what we're actively seeing in our mission briefings and in our missions. So we're going to be in this desert biome for a bit longer. It really is a good time to get used to chainfire, especially if you like using a lot of energy equipment like I do. And that comes from the fact that I like energy-based weapons, because the PPC is my favorite style of energy-based weapon, and from having played the different Mechwarrior games over time. Particularly Mechwarrior 2, small lasers were really potent. Even in Mercenaries as an Innisphere game, small lasers were pretty potent. I remember running around in a mongoose really fast, getting close, and just blitzing with small lasers on the target. So, while these are medium lasers, it kind of has stuck in my brain to be laser heavy or energy weapon heavy personally, and that's what we're doing. And chain firing is a good way to deal with turrets and light vehicles without dumping an entire salvo of lasers, all of them at once, and keeping your heat down and having other lasers to shoot if you need to. But against mechs, you can do a quick dump and then chain fire after that to finish off or to keep your heat management happening. So the Adder Prime is a stout prime chassis, in my opinion, for a light mech. It's 35 tons, the heaviest light mechs can be, and it has 2 ERPPCs, a targeting computer, and a flamer as we deal with this medium weight Phoenix Hawk here. The problem is it has a flamer. That's not a problem for players. You just don't really make use of it if you're sticking with stock configurations. And if things get really close, then you can bear down with the flamethrower more or less. But for AI, they try to make use of their equipment as often as they can, all of it. So you're going to notice this adder is going to try and close the distance when it could just hang back and really take things out effectively with its ERPPCs. But it's just one of those AI things. It's an AI quirk. Overall, I think they did a very good job with the AI, so I'm not going to complain too much. In any case, while we're at 100, I believe 90 tons of what we actually dropped at out of a total of 195 or something along those lines, we are going to see over the course of the mission that we are going to definitely get eclipsed by the total mech tonnage, not counting vehicle tonnage, that we are going to encounter. And that's to be expected in any Mechwarrior game. It's just how it gets thrown at you and how much over what you are capable of bringing in are you going to face at the end of the day to figure out how much you're going to get whittled down or potentially whittled down and so on. Yes, keen-eyed observers will notice, if you didn't pay attention to the first episode of this playthrough, is that this is on story mode difficulty, not because I can't hack it anywhere else. I did normal mode for the most of my playthrough initially as I was learning things in this game when it first came out, and I'm actively doing a expert playthrough on stream. So you can check that out in the link in the video description. When I do stream Mechwarrior stuff, it'll be Mechwarrior 5 Clan, specifically expert difficulty. So it's not that it's not doable. The reason we are on story mode difficulty here is just not have to worry too much about going crazy in our maneuverings and min-maxing, and we can just stick with stock builds and showcase the stock builds more to be more quote-unquote lore accurate and see how everything's going. So I don't know why we skipped some frames there. The recording went fine when I recorded it, but we took out a Panther and we had its reactor go critical from doing so, and I call that an engine kill. I've been bringing it up before, but I will call out engine kills because it doesn't always happen. And it's important to keep in mind when it happens because you don't want to be too close when they detonate. You will take some damage. In any case, regardless of the difficulty level, you will get obliterated if you just face tank everything and don't try and leverage tactics, right? You want to focus fire down, you want to maneuver around things, you don't want to just stand out in the open and get whittled down by everything constantly shooting you. You're not a turret, you're a mech, so move around. Just want to put that out there. One thing I didn't make mention of in this configuration of Viper is that we have an SRM-6 with Artemis 4 fire control. What that is, it sounds fancy because it kind of is, it reduces the spread of the missiles. So missiles are subject to what's known as spread because once they fire out, they got to get to where you aim them, or if they have tracking, they got to get to where you targeted it. And as such, they're going to spread out a little bit. It's going to be similar to like a shotgun blast, only not as obvious with like buckshot being spread really quickly. But this can result in your missiles hitting the left torso, the left arm, and the center torso when you are aiming for, let's say, the left torso. So a slight spread reduction is going to be helpful, and that's what Artemis 4 does. It's up in the air how much people want to make use of it because it is extra weight and all that than just your standard version of the missile launcher, but that's what this stock loadout comes with in this alternate configuration, so that's what we're running with. These turrets, you probably are noticing, are becoming a little bit more stout. They got 2 medium lasers, and if they're missile turrets, they got 2 LRM-10s, so you don't want to just take missile hits for no reason. We are facing some heavier vehicles as well, and more frequent usage of bunches of flyers and vehicles, so it's to be expected, right? Because we are going into the late stage of Santandar's missions, more or less, so difficulty should ramp up as you progress through your campaign, but it also, I think, smells of desperation, and it just coincidentally works out pretty well that way, right? At this point, I think it really, like I mentioned earlier in the mission, I think the pirates really realize that we're not dealing with a standard Innisphere force. We don't know what we're dealing with. We don't really know what these mechs are, and they are doing nothing but being ruthless in their attacks against us. You know, other forces would have left by now. This isn't good. And I think that's what we're dealing with here. Now, we do typically outrange these turrets, but the way we're coming up on them, we're in their range. It's not a big deal. Turrets do go down pretty quick, but you want to pay attention to where they are and not let them just shoot you down. Also, pay attention to your own targeting reticles. As you saw there a little bit earlier, I fired off my lasers. Some kind of grazed my ally because you have two reticles. The center reticle, which doesn't move, and then a reticle that kind of moves around it. The one that moves a bit more freeform is your arms. The center one is your torso. And you'll notice, especially when your torso is twisting and the like, that they don't always line up, but at some point when you're looking high into the sky or you're turned really extreme to one side, they won't link up. So when you're firing stuff that's both in the torso and in the arms, they're going to go at different spots. So just be aware of that. I all the time kind of not forget that, but just don't pay close attention and end up wasting some shots. Not the biggest of a deal if it's energy. It does generate waste heat, obviously. But if you're using ammunition, you don't want to deplete your ammunition by shooting at nothing because the torso is not able to hit the target. This is why there's something to be said about having arm equipment as well as torso equipment. But in any case, just a nice little example that happened there, so I figured I'd bring it up. Now, this is going towards Storehouse Echo. So we've gone through several storehouses now, and I think this is a nice little appetizer of how things will be on some missions where, you know, it could have ended a storehouse ago easily. I don't feel it's overstaying its welcome this mission, not at all, but if you are being whittled down by fire, if you're taking extra damage for just because you're newer to the gaming experience of Mechwarrior or whatever, the fact that these missions progress a nav point further than what you might think really is going to be important in terms of damage mitigation, heat management, ammo conservation, and the like. Especially in these earlier missions where the light mechs, and they address this a little bit, but light mechs still are going to be a little bit ammo starved for longer missions. It's just par for the course, the nature of the beast when you're dealing with a long mission. We don't have a lot of tonnage, so you can't have a lot of reserve ammo. So there's a double LRM-10 turret. You definitely want to take that down sooner rather than later. And we can see our screen is getting affected by ECM. This is because there's a Raven nearby. The Raven's a light mech that is really all about electronic warfare. It has an active probe, it has an ECM, and it has a NARC missile to help out for missile lock. The nice thing about ECM is once the mech's destroyed, obviously it stops affecting you, but if it's in a location, let's say the left torso, and you destroy the left torso, you will also destroy the ECM effect on you. So you don't have to just destroy the mech. So that was a lot of tonnage thus far. We even had a Hatchet Man, which is a melee-driven mech, a medium version of the heavyweight Axeman, and we dealt with that earlier. So Leo mentioned a Franken mech, and ask and ye shall receive, right? That's the saying. Well, here we are. This was first introduced by PGI, the company that made this game, in Mechwarrior Online, and then Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, and I actually like the concept of the Corsair. The idea that they cobble together a bunch of mech parts so they can make a functional mech is very fitting for the Inner Sphere. And this thing, I believe this particular one, because they vary in weight, but the heaviest they can get is 95 tons. We may just be facing a 95-ton mech considering the amount of lasers and missile and autocannon weapons it has. Definitely a bit of a bruiser. You don't want to just face tank it like I'm doing. I'm not being very smart in my maneuvering. I'm just kind of moving back and forth, letting it hit me. Partly because I'm trying to shield my allies, and partly because I'm just being bad. But with our technology and our star, we can focus it down. But you can notice it's taking a lot of hits. It's definitely pretty tanky. Thankfully, not trying to melee us. We don't believe in melee in the clans when it comes to battle mechs, and I have to agree. Yeah, you can put an axe in a mech's hand and smack down and do some pretty good damage, but you also can just annihilate them from range, so why not do that? And I would have to agree with that sentiment. So, in any case, we took down that Corsair. We're going to scan its data core because chances are a big mech like that, yeah, it's cobbled together, but it's a big mech still. It's going to have some intel potential for us. They tend to. At least that's the way it tends to work in games, right? The bigger and better it is, the better chance you have of getting something useful out of it. So, that's what we're doing. My front center torso is exposed. That's why I have some structural damage, but thankfully it's not too bad. Somehow, Liam took no damage this whole mission, so good for him. And here we are. So, yeah, a pretty successful mission. Not too much damage except on myself because I'm bad. Mech experience, or pilot experience, you're just gonna notice that these AI pilots will get experience, but you as a player doing most of the stuff typically is gonna get the most experience.
The food is not any better.
I know. They lied to me too.
What are we supposed to do?
I cannot believe our march on Terra has finally begun.
Why? Was this not what we were made for?
That is funny, coming from someone who was still gestating in an iron womb when most of the clan Tuman was being blooded in battle. The Zakan said it herself. Generations of warriors have come and gone, all believing themselves to be the ones to herald our return home to the inner sphere. When I was a Sipkin, people spoke of the Dragoon Compromise. How the intelligence gathered by Wolf's Dragoons posing as inner sphere mercenaries would spur an invasion that never came. For nearly 40 years, the clans received intel from the Dragoons. And yet, the clan council did nothing.
To think all it took was a single jump ship to break the council's deadlock. Seems to me we should have just sent the Great Houses an invite rather than wasting all that time with the Dragoons.
Regardless of how we got here, this is our fight now. The Dragoons have served their purpose. Their intel on Valisek's forces has been accurate so far.
If anything, the Sakan should have put more stock into it. We might have been able to predict his ambush sooner.
Maybe.
Easy to criticize in hindsight.
No matter. It will be up to us to finish what the Dragoons started.
I like this little exposition cutscene. We get insight into more of the Battletech universe overall, a nice little mention of the Wolf Dragoons, and the fact that, yes, in the lore, Natasha Kerensky and a band of warriors from Clan Wolf posed as mercenaries as part of Wolf's Dragoons under the Black Widow Company to basically scout out the inner sphere and see basically what's up. And that data was transmitted back. So we do have some intel. You know, the clans aren't flying in blind against the inner sphere, like the inner sphere is basically dealing and flying in blind with the clans. So just getting some research going. I will eventually get solid slug research for the ultra autocannon, and of course I want to get armor and structural research and energy research going for all the different energy equipment because that's my bread and butter. We have the salvage claims maxed out, so future levels will be able to focus more on the science lab and on the repairs, so we will always have our mechs in tip-top shape, hopefully, and we'll be able to really start burning through some of these research in the queue. Because right now we're doing 300 research every 5 cycles, so basically every mission we're getting 300 research points being applied towards whatever the first research is. But once we start upgrading that, we're going to start seriously burning through some research, which is why you want a lot of components, so then we can start burning through research and having a lot of research to burn through. So it should be pretty good. They really help our mechs out. In any case, we are getting mech chassis experience. We can start unlocking different configurations soon. I really want to unlock configuration B of the Shadowcat for Liam. It has an active probe and an ECM, but I'm just shy a little bit, so you're gonna have to wait until the next mission to do that, more or less. In any case, though, we have ourselves a pretty stout star so far, and it's only going to get better as we progress. So, looking forward to getting less ammo dependency in the star, even though I am going to make a change to the Ada Prime and give it to Naomi in the future, which is going to make it really ammo dependent as kind of just an experiment, and also is going to showcase the issue with lighter mechs being ammo dependent, which no matter what they do it hotfix wise is meant to be there. So I don't hate it, it's just par for the course, and I was just experimenting, but we'll see that in a future part. In any case, don't forget to always check your barracks, see how much available XP you have to do upgrades. As I mentioned before, I am prioritizing maxing out evasion first because I'm bad, and I just like to do that before anything else. In any case, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to check out this video. Watch the other parts of the playlist if you haven't done so already. I have other videos going up as well in regards to the lore of this setting, and we'll do some build videos in the future too, so stay tuned. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until next time, take care.